Fred Shuttlesworth, now dead. He was one of the great pioneers of the civil rights movement. Shuttlesworth eventually came to Cincinnati in 1961 after decades of working tirelessly for nonviolent change. He endured beatings and bombings and even attempts on his life, but never gave up his fight for people to be treated equally. 9 News anchor Clyde Gray now looking back on his life.
The Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth dedicated his life to justice for every human being, regardless of race, color, or background.
History will record Fred Shuttlesworth as one of the great heroes of all times, especially as it relates to civil and human rights.
His efforts began with the civil rights struggles in Alabama in the 50s and 60s.
He fought in a very unafraid manner, a fearless manner, with courage to change his own community.
That work continued in Cincinnati with 4 decades of church leadership and community activism.
Reverend Shuttlesworth, during his life, remained not just an icon, but a hero to several generations.
Fred Shuttlesworth was short in stature, but long in determination to carry out his nonviolent crusade against formidable odds in the separate but equal South.
He fought like a giant, and this is what I appreciated about him.
He's the most courageous man I've ever met in my life. He's not afraid of anything.
Beatings, jailings, bombings, dogs, the whole bit. Fred was right. Fred was always on the front line.
Shuttlesworth said Ku Klux Klan members tried to kill him at least 10 times.
Almost invincible, you know. They couldn't shake him. They couldn't get rid of him. He just kept coming back and coming back.
One of those attempts, with 16 sticks of dynamite, permanently changed his outlook on life.
In the Christmas 1956, when the bomb went off and destroyed the house, I don't have a picture of that. If you had that, you could see why I don't get excited. Blew the cone off the house, sprang it out from under my bed. The wall between my head and the dynamite was shattered. It took the fear out of me. And it made me know that God sent me to lead the fight, so that I never was fearful after that.
As Fred Shuttlesworth carried the load in Birmingham, his work inspired a young pastor rising to prominence in Montgomery, Alabama. His name was Martin Luther King, Jr.
Martin worked on a higher sphere in terms of eloquence and loftiness of speech and beauty of mind, and able to go and do things whereby Fred was down in the grassroots. He was right down there in the trenches. He was just as important as Martin was, and I rate Fred as equal as a hero in the civil rights movement as Martin Luther King, Jr.
After coming to Cincinnati in 1961, Reverend Shuttlesworth soon formed Greater New Light Baptist Church in Avondale. He kept fighting for justice, going against Cincinnati Gas and Electric.
When they shut off that gas and electric, they are in fact inviting death, suffering, and hardship to people.
In 1967, he was philosophical about returning to Birmingham to serve a 5-day jail sentence for contempt.
First of all, it's a matter of honor and integrity. I think a person has a right to bear the consequences of his actions. And then the next thing is that this is suffering that must be done to purify the country.
Awards came often to Shuttlesworth. He joined Bobby Stern and Charles Meacham in 2000 as Great Living Cincinnatians. Former President Bill Clinton presented him the President's Honor Award in 2001. And in 2004, he was immortalized at the Freedom Center as an everyday freedom hero.
Many of the freedom and concerns that we're enjoying as far as economic development, jobs, educationally, spiritually, is because of Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth. Amen.
There are people who are enjoying the benefits of his legacy that really have no idea. People who have jobs that they wouldn't have had, that can vote that couldn't vote before, that can drink from water fountains that they couldn't drink from before.
I think that our young people should think of the sacrifices that he made to get ahead and to get the rights that we have now.
What is the legacy of the Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth?
I would say courage. I would say courage in the face of danger, in the face of all odds, perseverance, stick-to-itiveness, and tenacity.
Shuttlesworth himself, in 2002, reflected on his contributions to mankind.
But I hope my life has been inspirational to young people and to really all people, because if we realize that we're on this earth for God's service, justice, brotherhood, that's the main thing. Not to just to be seen, because I don't think people ought to be a show. We ought to live our lives. We ought to live them in relationship to others, and trying to, in as much as possible,